Hello and welcome to Impact Africa, our online talk show where we get to have conversations with diverse people and organizations who are impacting lives positively. Yes, this is me, Kemi Akiode Adebayo, aka Mama K, and in today's program I've got an intelligent, smart, handsome, creative, I could go on, visionary, specialist who is a doctor, but he will tell us what he does. Is Dr. Oluwafemi Jeremiah Olarogun. He has practices based in Cape Town and in Namibia as well. My dearest brother, how now?
Meet you. Thank you, we did.
So, where were you born? What's your life journey so far? And your education? Sure. Just tell us about yourself.
It's a bit of a longish story, but I'll try and start from the beginning. So, born in Nigeria, actually in the northern part of Nigeria.
Oh, you were born in the northern part of Nigeria. So can you speak the language from there?
No, I think I left when I was like 18 months old or something.
Okay,
so, born in Zaria.
Right.
And then we kind of moved, I think my parents moved to Lagos shortly after that, definitely before I was 2 years old.
Okay.
So all my schooling, my primary school days happened in Nigeria. In Lagos, sorry.
In Lagos.
Yeah. And
which
then,
schools?
I went to St. Catherine's Model School. It's in Yaba. It's just in Surulere.
In Surulere,
So
and secondary?
Was partially in Government College, Lagos.
Oh, that's where my husband went to. You probably didn't know that. Eric Moore. Okay.
So I was in Eric Moore, but I didn't finish in Eric Moore. I was in Eric Moore for the first 3 years, and then my parents moved to Ilorin.
Okay.
So I completed my high school education in government high school.
Why were your parents moving? Is it because of their work?
As we were saying, so my father had to move a few times because, he was actually a lecturer in Zaria initially in pharmacy.
Okay.
And his move to Lagos, I think, was because he was going into private practice. So he had a little business, private partnership with some guys from out of the country who had hunted him, so to say. So he ran a private unit there in Lagos, a private pharmacy, somewhere in, I think it was, what's that area? I can't remember the area in Lagos.
In Lagos,
now,
okay.
But not far from Ujoleg, but
right.
just down the road.
Okay.
So he did that, and then ultimately, as he got a little older, he decided he wanted to go into politics, and politics means going back to where he's from, which was Kwara State, went back to Ilorin. So that was the main move, that was the main reason. But we all had to then all live with him and all go there. So
usual.
Yeah, absolutely. so halfway through high school, it turned out to be quite a good thing actually, because at that point in Lagos, I had made my friends and obviously we all had, but academics and studying wasn't a big part of it, because Lagos always offers itself to all sorts of things that we used to get up to. So by the time we moved back to Ilorin, and then had to actually do another year of what we call Form 3.
Form 3 yes.
And then that kind of helped. From there on, I decided, I might actually be able to do this. I might take an interest in the academic sort of setup. And then things sort of moved on from there.
Okay. So what does your name mean, by the way?
So the name is Oluwafemi, which means God loves me.
Okay.
And, as you know, all Nigerians or Yoruba people always have a name that has a meaning to it. And then a biblical
name, which is Jeremiah. Okay.
So it's actually Jeremiah Oluwafemi,
right.
And a few other names. And then
so you studied at Ilorin?
Yes.
Medicine?
Medical school.
Medical school. So why the choice of medicine?
Funny enough,
I know it's the norm in Nigeria.
Sure,
every parent wants their children to be a doctor, lawyer, or engineer. Was it your parent or was it by choice?
No, it had nothing to do. Obviously my father was a pharmacist, so he was in the kind of medical field. My mom, was a teacher for a long time.
Okay.
She's retired now.
Okay.
But I think for me, it's always been something I wanted to do. I think from about before the age of 10, I probably, if you ask me, I'd say I wanted to, do that. And I'm sure a lot of people probably have said that at some point in their lives or the other when they were younger. But it just so happens that I had the opportunity to do it. So, it was, for me, that's the way I see it. I think, by the time you're saying you want to be a doctor before the age of 10, you probably don't know what it entails. That's the bottom line. You don't know what it entails to a large extent. But you know it's there, something in your, and then you, if you have an opportunity to then do it, then off you go. So in my case, that's probably how it worked out.
Right.
Yeah.
So how did you then decide to go into being a gynae, a specialist in that area?
So well, I think basically for me it was like in medical school you needed to decide on if you wanted to specialize or not. That's the first thing. And then the next thing is what do you want to specialize in? And suppose back in Nigeria in those days, we're talking, when did we finish? Almost like 30 years ago now. The choices of specialization or what you did with the degree was relatively limited. It's a lot more wider now. So in those days, most people will be thinking about the 4 main arms of medicine, which is obstetrics and gynecology, general surgery, pediatrics, you know, and internal medicine. So those are the big arms. Yeah. Those could be subdivided into all sorts of other things. So while I was doing my O&G rotation, the obstetrics and gynecology rotation, I took a liking to it because I felt that it was something that had a little bit of surgery, or quite a bit of surgery involved, as well as a bit of medicine. So it was a combination of things. Both. Yeah. If you're doing internal medicine, you don't really get to do procedures. All you do is basically just treat patients and perhaps, you know, do a lot of, you know, sort of differential diagnoses and all. So it didn't have the surgical aspect, not so much of it anyway. While obstetrics and gynecology offers you the ability to do surgery. And there's a lot of internal medicine, or a lot of medicine involved, so to say. And a little bit of pediatrics, because you know, in other words, you have a kid in the mom's womb that you actually deal with, and you're responsible for the care of that child or children.
Well, the fetus in there.
When they're in there.
And the mother.
And the mother. And then obviously once you deliver, you hand them over to the pediatricians. But there is a care of that involved as well. So it's probably the one aspect of medicine that encompasses everything. So that's one of the reasons why I was kind of interested at the beginning to get into it. And again, you know, sometimes you decide that's what you want to do, or you prefer to do that, and sometimes you don't have the opportunity to do so. I was again fortunate enough to be able to do that. So in other words, when I finished my initial degree back in Nigeria and I came down to South Africa, I had to, you know, you're coming down to South Africa, you have to work in.
I was going to ask, was it work that brought you here, or studies?
It was
what
because
brought you to South Africa?
It was basically because I wanted to specialize.
Okay, right. And which year was that?
I came down in '94.
Okay.
From Nigeria.
Okay. And why South Africa? To specialize.
So I suppose what it was.
And you found a flower here, huh? Eventually.
Eventually.
Okay.
But it was more about where we, at that point, where a few of my friends and myself thought there were opportunities to do things. So in other words, back in Nigeria in those days, I mean, it's a lot better now, but in those days when you finished and you look at specializing in Nigeria, there was a lot of it wasn't so attractive because of with the remuneration that registrars were got, and the specialists at that point, if you stay in the government setup, and then the ability for the whatever degree you get subsequently to be recognized internationally was also a problem. So you needed to get an international degree. That was sort of the way you kind of looked at it.
Okay.
Without, you know, that was the thinking.
Okay.
And then there was a friend of mine who now practices in Standerton as a GP, who came down to Southern Africa in our final year of, I think, penultimate year of medical school, and he saw things worked and the degrees were recognized. So that was probably the initial link.
Right.
And then you do a bit of your research. I mean, it was the days before internet was really what it is now. So it was a bit more difficult to find things, but you know, you don't find around. And a lot of us ended up being, you know, in South Africa based on that. But it wasn't like you come in and you get a job. There was an exam
that you have to take.
So you have to do an exam.
And that is after studying for how long in terms of medicine? How long did you do your?
It was 6 years, and then internship was another year.
Another year, so 7 years, and then you have to do the exam.
And then so you come with the exam. You know, it was called limited registration exams. The exam has evolved quite a bit, you know, all over the world, including South Africa, as to how foreign qualified or foreign trained doctors get to work, you know, in that particular country. Every country has it. Okay. You know, there has to be a way of validating your degree or validating your ability to practice in that country. And, you know, wherever you go, there will be some kind of either an exam or some kind of interview or something that goes on.
Yep.
So in those days, you had to write an exam, and then you wait a couple of months to get the results.
Okay.
Once you pass that exam, it allows you to do a couple of things. You can't just go out and practice in private practice. It allows you to work under supervision.
Right.
In a hospital.
Okay.
So often a government hospital, you can't work in a private hospital. So it's a government hospital where there is supervision, where there are specialists or the senior doctors that can then look at you and say, well, so you can do that. But the other thing you can do is try and apply to specialize.
Okay.
Because that's also considered a supervised post.
Wow.
So, but the good thing about that is if you do get special, when we still got in and started doing the specialization thing, if you get a specialization degree or specialized degree in South Africa, then you were recognized as a specialist in that field.
Okay.
And that was an open registration. So then made you sort of eligible to do whatever you wanted to do in the country, including private or public or practice.
So let me go back to the other side of whereby you've got two wonderful young children and a South African medical doctor.
That's right. Yeah.
And how has that been for you, juggling the different culture, with a wife, who's in your profession as well? Sure. And I would have loved to even ask how you met and so on, but because of time, we'll skip that bit.
Sure.
So with how do you juggle your culture growing up in Nigeria now with the South African?
It's difficult. I mean, I think let's say it's different because I mean the way you got brought up in Nigeria. It's totally different to where things happen here.
Correct.
And I suppose you got to try and find a way of initially or somehow blending those two cultures together. In other words, the kids have to have an idea what the Nigerian culture is about, even though they're growing up here.
Yes.
On the other hand, you also want them to have the best opportunity that they can have, within the system that they are in. So it's basically trying to ground them as much as possible because it's quite often that we tend to forget, we don't, but they tend to forget sometimes how much had happened before their time. In other words, how much has been going on to get them to that point where they are, where they are.
Right.
And you don't really want to belabor that point, but you actually just want them to appreciate
exactly
a little bit of what had happened in the background beforehand.
Right.
Making it sound like you're one of these people who just wants to keep telling them that, they're lucky or whatever.
The way we Nigerians are meant to do. You're lucky you're getting it. So do they visit home, your wife and the children?
Yeah, they've been a couple of times.
Okay.
I guess with recent events and all that, they haven't been for a while.
Okay.
They were when they were a bit younger. And I'm sure at some point, they will probably at some point go back on their own and perhaps go back again with me and stuff. But they have been on a couple of occasions. But they are really, when you interact with them, they're mainly South African, pretty much. That's the setup that they have been brought up in. That's what they're used to.
Can they speak your language or Afrikaans?
Not at all. Oh, they speak Afrikaans.
They speak. It's normally the mother's language. That's why I found out that the mother's language.
It's a mother tongue.
That's what. True. Exactly. Now let's come back to your work. So you have a practice in Cape Town and as well in Namibia.
That's right. Yeah.
And you shuttle, obviously. So what are some of the success stories, for you, and what do you feel mostly proud of in terms of what you're doing? And I know you do a lot of speaking engagement worldwide. You specialize in areas on fibroids specifically, and so on.
Well, I mean, I've got a sub-specialty qualification, reproductive medicine, which that happened a few years ago. So you finish your training as an obstetrician and gynaecologist, and then you do a couple of extra years of training to specialize in a particular area. So it's called a sub-specialty degree. And I mean, in that field, you're blessed to make a difference all the time. That's the reality. I won't be able to tell you specific stories, but there's a lot of. It's a blessing, really. That's where I see you're put in a position where your skills and your ability and your knowledge impacts positively on people's lives, and that has got to do with people who are trying to conceive, for instance, or people who have tried to conceive for so many years and nothing is happening, and you can make a difference there. It's always is very rewarding. You also have people who have had pregnancies, but have had recurrent pregnancy losses. So in other words, they've had sort of miscarriages after miscarriages and all that. And if you're able to get to a point where you help enough to get them to that point, where, just remember, I got an SMS from a patient. I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago. Whose baby is now about, I think, 4 or 5 months. So send me a picture of it. And this is a woman who'd been pregnant 6 times.
Wow.
6 or 7 times.
Wow.
And I had things done at different hospitals, and then she came here and we did something, a procedure that is not always sort of done, and luckily it did work.
It did work. Wow.
And now she delivered a full 9-month baby, and the baby is a very, and
you must be, that must be really joyful and rewarding for you. So you have so many babies, not your children, not biological children.
A few, I would think.
A few. So what are the challenges though? Because you must have some things where you probably struggle with in terms of your profession, at the moment.
I suppose if you go back to when we went into private practice in Cape Town, sort of 20-something years ago, we, as in my friend, a colleague of mine, and myself initially at that point, there weren't a lot of black gynecologists in private practice in Cape Town. So, whether we like it or not, that's used to maybe even still now plays a role. So we actually initially started with a practice in Bloberg.
Right.
And we were the only 2 black gynecologists in the whole area, pretty much, for a long time. And then but people couldn't understand why you want to do that. Like, nobody's will come to you. But it actually didn't work that way. For the patients, it wasn't an issue. They thought that they knew what you were doing, they knew what you were talking about. They referred people to you, and just what it was. For our colleagues, however, it wasn't the same. It was actually a stiffer.
Really?
Yeah, it was actually a stiffer kind of climb for the colleagues, because they couldn't get to a point where they thought that their patients could be managed by
a black gynae.
Non-white, sort of socially. So that takes a while for people to wrap their head around, especially if they don't know you from Bar Soap and you just met in the hospital setup. So those were initially difficult. But it's just what you make of it, really. There's always ways of you just keep going and you put your head down. And
word of mouth, based on your track record, will go beyond color and everything else. So and that trust and the relationship, I bet,
so luckily
that probably you develop.
It's a relationship. I mean, it's an area that allows you to build relationships with people. Exactly. And once that happens, then it's okay. People are quite happy to keep that relationship going. And less in the last sort of few years, the issue of color has become less and less of a factor. Thank God. I think it means that we're growing, because I wouldn't want
moving forward.
A situation where my kids are practicing or doing things and they still have to be worried. Probably will still happen, but hopefully not as much.
In a different way. Well, not in a different way, but not as much.
So
it will be something different entirely.
I'm hoping that situation.
Well, let's hope and pray. Okay, you know what? We'll be right back.
Okay.
My brother, what a journey from Zaria to Lagos to Ilorin to Cape Town? No, you probably didn't stop in Cape Town first.
Not straight to Cape Town.
Not straight to Cape Town. Let's leave all this. Eventually Cape Town. Eventually Cape Town.
That's right.
To getting married, to starting your own practice, and a lot of other stuff that you do.
That's right.
So what motivates you? What keeps you going? As a medical doctor, and in terms of, like you said, helping before the break, the reward, that you get from seeing this little life, and so on. But what motivates you? What inspires you?
I think, there's a saying that sounds like a cliche, and it is probably, a cliche, but the fact is that they say, find something that you enjoy doing and you will never work a day in your life. So it's about finding, a niche that you enjoy doing. The rest comes, so naturally, whatever remuneration comes from it, will be something that will be secondary to what you're doing, because what you're doing is just enjoying what you do. So I think that I think I'm lucky enough to find a niche of an area that I actually enjoy doing what I do. So the motivation is easy, getting up in the morning and going to the work and doing this and doing this. So part of what I do includes teaching young doctors.
Oh, you're doing that. Okay.
So I'm still involved with that.
Awesome.
Groote Schuur, and also in Botswana. So I've got to, in at certain times before COVID, travel to Botswana to do a bit of teaching and all that in teaching hospital there. So that for me is the passion, being able to teach and impart knowledge. At the same time see people and meet people and keep going. So for me that's the big thing, is the fact that if you're enjoying what you're doing, if that's what you enjoy doing, then motivation is easy.
It's easy.
There's no need to get you to have something. I mean, you can argue that, and I always say that you can argue that if you're coming from a setup like we did, where it wasn't as if you come from a rich family. My parents were not poor, but they were not. So you wanted to do better for yourself.
Yes.
And if you've been in situations where you couldn't really afford certain things that you wanted to do that you considered basic, that in itself keeps you moving. In other words, you know where you're coming from, and you know you don't want to go back there, so you keep working.
Right.
So often that's part of that's very on the motivation on the side. But it's, if you can, that is one thing. And you can call that hustling in your own way.
Yeah.
So whichever way you want to look at it. But the fact is that, if you are doing something, if the hustle isn't something that you enjoy, then it's not hustle anymore.
Yeah. So what bit of your medical profession do you enjoy most? Which bits do you you really, really enjoy?
Yeah, I think I still enjoy operating.
Okay.
So I do a lot
seeing all that blood. I don't want to think about it.
Always gory, but
no.
But sometimes it's not as gory as open procedure. We do a lot of sort of keyhole surgery.
Yes. And which one do you least enjoy? Which bit that you don't look forward to?
Well,
that maybe somebody else could do for you.
Yeah, I'll put it to you this way. I haven't done a delivery. I don't do deliveries anymore. I stopped doing that about maybe 7-8 years ago.
Oh, you're up there. Well, are you kind of the ones that you don't call a doctor anymore? We call you Mr.
No, not at all. I'm very happy to be called whatever. That's not an issue at all. No, but it's just that, those parts where you've got to go out at 2 o'clock in the morning. I did it for 12 years. I did private obstetrics for like 12 years. So you get called at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and you still have to have a full day ahead of you. So people that do private obstetrics, it's not fun from that point of view. No matter how much you try and plan, there are times when things don't work according to plan, and you find yourself, you do a delivery at 11 o'clock at night, you do a delivery at 2 o'clock in the morning, and by the time 8 o'clock comes, you're at your desk consulting and seeing patients, despite the fact that you got no sleep the night before. So that part of it is not pleasant.
No.
So
help share with us. I know some you've already highlighted, as we were talking there. Right. Some key lessons, that you will give to your son or your daughter. I don't know whether anyone is thinking of becoming a medical doctor. That you will say, okay, you know what, you need to do that. So what are kind of the tips? So anybody that wants to become a young person that wants to study medicine, what key lessons?
The bottom line is it's hard work. Like anything else, it's hard work, and hard work pays off. So if you have the opportunity to do medicine, and you have the flair for it, I would say just put the hard work in.
Okay.
The good thing though is that having a medical degree is like having just an entrance degree, nowadays. So in other words, it just opens doors. So in other words, you get that medical degree, you can decide to be a GP, open your own practice and practice general medicine or general, as a general practitioner. You can go into admin, so you can go and work with medical aid.
Right. So there's a lot of opportunities, not just about operating. If you don't like blood.
That's right. You can do surgical discipline, you can do non-surgical discipline.
Okay.
And within those, there are other sort of spheres and levels you can get to. So in other words, you can then sub-specialize and do research in something else and just stay in the research zone and do absolutely nothing but research all day.
Okay.
You don't have to. You can be a doctor and don't have to see a patient for the rest of your life. You can do other things that are. So for me it's a good degree because it gives you that solid foundation, solid background. But it doesn't come without some sweat. And
you're repeating that hard work, sweat.
There's no story about it. Wherever you're doing medicine, there's always sweat.
Okay, we'll be right back and just share some of your work. So, my brother,
Right.
there's a lot of social issues and issues out there, from health issues, gender-based violence, crime, poverty, and so on. I don't know if there's any particular issue for you that touches your heart or speaks to you. I want you to share with us, but to share solutions of what can be done, about that particular, whether us or anybody watching, whatever.
That's a good question. I mean, look, we all know what the issues are, but if those issues were easily solvable, they would not be such major issues.
Yeah.
That's why we still struggle to try and get to the bottom of it. All those you've mentioned are all very important. I mean, obviously gender-based violence, we see a lot of that. My initial exposure from when I came to South Africa was the level of violence that does occur between sort of spouses and things like that, because you see that at the other end, because you're sitting in an emergency room and you see what comes in as a junior doctor, the kind of pain that is inflicted, physical pain by sort of spouses and people that are close to you. So that always comes close to man, and people, as we know, have died from being beaten up and shot by their spouses. What can one do? Education, I suppose, and perhaps improvement of the infrastructures in places where this is an issue. Though it does cut across board generally, but perhaps education in making people see that it doesn't have to always be that way. What often gets to me is that you see the same group of people doing the same things over and over again.
Yes.
And it's usually linked to alcohol and drug use and all that.
Yeah.
So you got to break that cycle.
Right.
And sometimes you've seen success stories of people coming out of that cycle and doing something else good for themselves. But that needs to be broken. That cycle needs to be infiltrated. And that's not one person's job. It's not just the government. It's everybody. Whoever you meet, whichever way you can do it, people look at you and they say, this guy, he does things differently. Perhaps it's something one can consider.
Correct.
It's always easy to dump everything on the government's door and say they're not doing enough.
But we all have a role to play.
We all have a role to play in that. So whether it's gender-based violence, like you mentioned, whether it's poverty, whatever, they're all linked actually when you think about it.
Yes.
A lot of it is because people don't have enough to do and enough to look forward to. A lot of frustration that is built and pent up. So it's a very difficult thing to sort of run, but it's multifaceted. The issues are multifaceted that leads to it. The solutions have to be multifaceted.
Yes, as well. Yes.
It can't be one single simple solution, unfortunately.
Right. Wow. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure.
I can't close without asking this one.
Right.
I know that was probably my last one, but I can't finish without asking this.
Right.
What do you do in your spare time? I know you play tennis and you love squash. Sorry, I'm getting it wrong now. Squash. So is there anything else that you do apart from squash? And you make the time. I think you make the time.
I think that's what it is. I think that's also important to get that balance. If you work so hard and you got to find that balance between work, family, and obviously doing something else that you do for your own level. So I play a lot of squash. Like you say, I play at different levels, and I play international tournaments as well.
I didn't even know that you do play international tournaments.
I do. National and international.
National and international. Wow.
So make time to do that, and then the rest of the time it comes with traveling, which is my other passion. So apart
from supporting us now, which is the wrong thing to support.
Not anymore.
No, for now. You've got a fluke period now. I beg.
It will come.
It will come. Oh, wow. Well done. So, in closing, would you please just help send any word of encouragement to anyone? It might be the women, having issues conceiving, or young people wanting to study, whoever you pick. I want to just include it.
So I suppose what it is for me is like never to give up. I mean, it sounds like a cliche, but if you look at a lot of people who have made successes out of their lives, it's never been in one day. It's never been something that you just do and it just comes straight onto you. You've got to put the work in. So that's probably repeating that. So hard work is never something that goes badly wrong. And apparently, the other thing to probably say is that there is always help out there. So when it feels like it's the end of the road, just look around, and there are people who are willing to lend a helping hand. And from there, just those little tips and little helping hands often get you out of what looks like a very difficult situation, a very deep hole. But eventually you come out on top if you persevere. So that would be my sort of little pieces of advice.
Wow, that was deep still. Never give up. There's always help out there. Put the work in. And I think you've been saying that so many times.
That's right.
You've got to sweat. You've got to do the hard work. And hard work pays off. You are benefiting from all the hard work over the years. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
For all you do. We celebrate you.
Thank you.
We recognize all what you're doing and helping as well in South Africa to change the narrative as a Nigerian. Not that you're carrying the flag as a Nigerian, but the fact that your name alone, shows that yes, you're not from South Africa, but you are, doing your work and putting back, in the community. Sure. Because yes, when we're here as a co-Nigerian or fellow Nigerian, we have to do more. We, in terms of the story, out there. So thank you. And as a medical doctor, the field you're doing, blessing, like you said. Yeah, it is. Blessing, each family, each mother, that you've managed to help solve, that problem, at that time. Yeah. So I commend you, and I have a lot of respect for you. You know that, and I love you dearly, my brother. You know that. Yeah. You're my go-to. Always calling you. Okay, Dr. Femi, what do I do? My son has this. I'm still going to be calling you. So well done, and thank you. Thank you so much for the interview. And wishing you all the very best for the future.
Thank you.
God will keep blessing you as you bless others. Amen. And more to come, and your children will be greater than you. That's what we pray as an African. Absolutely. For our children to be greater than us, and they will become well known. I prophesy that into you. I didn't plan on saying that, but I'm saying that now. So thank you for all you do.
Thanks for the interview. I hope it gets to reach people, and hope it changes.
It will. It does. We get feedback, and we get a lot of.
And just to comment on what you do as well, this is very important work, and I think people should realize that without this sort of work being done in the background, a lot of things left untouched and left unsaid. So I think you're touching those areas. So well done.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, guys, this is Mama K signing off. You've heard it all. A lot was said in there. I want to become a doctor now, huh? But maybe I can't do that smart work, though. I can't do all the reading and 7 years. But the fact that, what it's doing is saving lives, making people happy, giving people joy. And, through the grace of God, is using him through his skills. So, till next time, you never know what you two can do, and we hope you've been blessed, by that conversation. And we'll be back, because there's more I still want to talk about. We always have part 2 of all this program. So we will be back, to hear how Dr. Olarogun is doing. And till next time, stay safe, stay blessed. God is love, and adios.